is the Spirit of Christ. And when we yield to the Holy Spirit and when we follow the Holy Spirit, He will lead us and He will direct us into loving others. In Galatians chapter 5, the Apostle Paul says, "Only use not your liberty for an occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another. For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." So he's saying we're free. We're free from the law. We're free from trying to please God in our own strength. But he's saying don't use that freedom. Don't use that freedom that you have because of your salvation. Don't use that freedom to live in the flesh. But what do you need to do? You need to, by love, serve one another. Again, he's talking about the sacrificial, self-sacrificing love. But by love, serve one another. For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. But if ye bite and devour one another, take heed that ye be not consumed one of another. So he's saying there are people out there who are Christians, but they are using their freedom from the law. They are using their freedom to live in the flesh. And what in reality they are doing, they are hating one another. They are biting one another. They are sinning against one another. And Paul says that these people need to be careful, because if they bite one another, they devour one another, soon they're going to destroy one another with their sins. Then he says, "This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary one to another, that ye cannot do the things that ye would. But if ye be led of the Spirit, ye are not under the law." Again, what do we need to do? We need to walk in the Spirit. What Spirit is he talking about? He is talking about the Spirit that dwells inside of us, the Spirit of Christ that lives inside of us. And we need to obey Him and follow the Spirit that lives inside of us. And if we follow the Spirit, if we walk in the Spirit, we will not fulfill the lust of the flesh. When we have our minds set on the Holy Spirit that dwells inside of us, He gives us new desires and new aspirations. We become dead to sin. And we don't have a desire to go and commit sin. We have a desire to do holiness. But when our mind is set upon the flesh and the things of the flesh, we separate ourselves from the Holy Spirit and we return to the carnal mind. And the carnal mind is enmity against God, and it cannot be subject to the law of God. It doesn't want to obey God. So a person who's thinking about the flesh and setting his mind on the things of the flesh has separated himself from the Holy Spirit and is walking in the flesh. He needs to realize what he's doing, and he needs to set his mind upon the Spirit. What Spirit? He needs to set his mind upon the Holy Spirit that dwells inside of him, the Spirit of Christ. And if he sets his mind on the Spirit, he will have life and he will have peace. He will come alive. A good example of this is take the Word and just read the Word. Let's say for 20 minutes you read the Word, and after a while your mind will be renewed and you will enter into the Spirit. You will be in the Spirit. But we have a choice. I could go and then I could turn on the TV and I could go and do my own thing. And after a while those fleshly things, those carnal things will have an effect on me, and I will return to the carnal mind and I will grow in the flesh. Either I could grow in the Spirit or I could grow in the flesh. Either I could yield to the Holy Spirit that dwells inside of me, or I could yield to my old sinful nature and obey the desires and the lusts of the flesh. But we have to understand, when we obey the desires of the flesh and we obey the desires of the mind, what in reality we are doing is we are obeying the desires of the devil and the prince of the power of the air. Just like Christ lives inside of us through the Holy Spirit, and He lives inside of our hearts and He works through our heart to fulfill His desire, the devil works in the same way. He puts evil desires and evil lusts into the hearts of people, and they go and they fulfill his desire. So that very specific, it says, the devil put in the heart of Judas to betray Jesus. The devil put that desire in Judas to betray Jesus. God also puts desires. He gives us revelations and He puts desires into our heart to follow Him and to obey Him and to do His work. God sent the Spirit of His Son into your hearts. So God lives inside of you. Where? Inside your heart. So when your heart condemns you and your heart tells you you are doing something wrong, it is not your heart, it is actually Jesus Christ. It is actually the Holy Spirit that dwells inside of you that is telling you that the things you are doing is wrong and the things that you are doing are against love. The Holy Spirit lives inside of us, and the Holy Spirit will convict us and lead us into loving others. But only if we yield to the Holy Spirit, if we yield to the Spirit that dwells inside of us, the Spirit of Christ that dwells inside of us.